And we want to continue the conversation now with Antonio Romanucci. He is one of the lawyers representing George Floyd's family as well as Daunte Wright's family in Minneapolis. Hi, Antonio. Thanks so much for taking the time tonight.
Thank you, Ginella. Pleasure to be here.
So we heard a little bit there, but tell me more about how the family is feeling as this trial wraps up.
Well, I've got to tell you, Ginella, I was with the family today, and I actually sat down with them. I asked them how they were feeling and what they were expecting. Their range of emotions right now is just so extreme. It ranges from hope, it ranges from anger, frustration. They are bracing themselves because they don't know that they can still trust the system. It's so wide-ranging that they don't know where to go. One of the comments that one of the family members made to me today, it felt like the defense was fishing without a bait on the hook. And that's kind of the emptiness that they feel listening to George continuing to be being vilified here, as opposed to Derek Chauvin being the one on trial.
And so we heard the closing arguments today, the end of, I think, 2 weeks of trial. Are you happy with the way the prosecution laid out their case?
Well, I think the prosecution did an outstanding job. And here's what they did. They laid out a very chronological, linear, and methodical case. They wrapped it up today with a very nice constellation of graphics where the jury can really tie up the loose ends, and they showed them how to get a conviction for second-degree murder. They gave them the roadmap of how to get a conviction for third-degree murder and for involuntary manslaughter. With the graphics and the way that they tied it up, I think the jury can get there. Now, if there's somebody that's holding out, we don't know that right now. But if this jury wanted to convict that second-degree murder, they can do it.
And what did you make of the defense's arguments? You talked a little bit about the fact that they did try to vilify George Floyd and speak to what he had been doing that day and the drugs in his system. What did you make of the way they presented their case?
Well, the defense closing argument did surprise me a little bit. I counted 42 minutes before Eric Nelson began to raise what I call the reasonable doubt. He spent about the first 40 minutes of his argument reading the jury instructions and telling the jury about the law, what reasonable doubt is. And he waited a long time, in my opinion, before he started raising those doubt issues. Clearly we know what he's blaming George's death on too big of a heart, on fentanyl, on carbon monoxide off of a hybrid vehicle. He's blaming it on cardiomyopathy. Arteries that are clogged. Just throwing everything, the kitchen sink at the wall and seeing if it sticks.
We did see there, our reporter in Minneapolis, the crowds out, rallying. How significant is this verdict, not just for Minneapolis, but for the U.S.?
Well, I think it's very significant. I mean, first of all, what is happening here in Minneapolis is the most notorious civil rights trial in recent history, if not in our country's history. And the verdict here is going to resonate. It'll have meaning, because what everybody wants is the truth. They want accountability. They want transparency. They want faith in the justice system. And what we saw on May 25th, 2020 was a murder. And we want the justice, we want the accountability to match the act. And I think it is very important. And we want good policing in this country. And how do we get good policing? With accountability.
I want to ask about the other case where you're co-counsel, and that is in the shooting of Daunte Wright. That incident happening on the backdrop of this trial. The officer there charged with manslaughter. I know there are a lot of questions around whether that was an appropriate charge.
Well, it's an appropriate charge for now. Whether or not there will be additional charges, that's to be determined. For now, it's an appropriate charge. Clearly what happened to Mr. Wright and that family, and the Wright family, Daunte Wright, was beyond horrible. Tragic in every sense of the word. Unarmed and shot because the police officer thought she was reaching for her taser, which I don't believe. This was an intentional movement with her right hand to the right side to pick up her gun and shoot. So this was intentional. So for right now, the involuntary manslaughter is an appropriate charge. Depending on how the evidence shakes out and as the investigation continues, there may be a more appropriate, greater charge.
And just quickly, how is the Wright family doing? And are they watching the Chauvin trial case? I'm not sure if this will have any impact on theirs.
Well, you know, that's a great question. The Wright family is with the Floyd family. They've been watching the trial together. They've been praying together. And you can only imagine the pain that this family is feeling. They're in the midst of planning a funeral and in the middle of this historic trial. And it's very painful to them. They just don't understand why this keeps happening in their backyard. You know, not only this family, but the community has lived through killings, needless killings like this year after year after year. It has to stop. Now's the time.
Antonio Romanucci is a lawyer for the George Floyd family and Daunte Wright's family in Minneapolis. Thanks so much for your time tonight.